Joe and Iris, I love them.
We will.
My name is Kevin Garcia, and I'm a professional comics historian, but
Sorry, kid, but this
this
has
is not
to
about
happen.
me. We are here for the Flash.
Barry, what are you doing?
I'm
John
momentarily
Wesley Shipp.
stealing. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. This is an honor.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I was referring to you as a Flash of two worlds. You are every Flash, basically, at this point, and I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, somebody said that I was their favorite Flash, and I said, I'm just proud to be one of three, and they wrote back, 2 of 4. Jake Garrick, Barry Allen.
Reverse Flash?
Reverse Flash on Batman the Brave and the Bold, Professor Zoom. Yes, yes, yes. I've been myself, my own worst enemy, my father, and now I'm my mentor. So I've run the gamut. I don't know what else is there for me to do.
You're also, of course, been in several other things. You were the dad on Dawson's Creek.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. Yay, in the house. Yeah, that was an amazing experience, filming in Wilmington, North Carolina, and watching a very young cast who were relative unknowns. I mean, Josh had done Mighty Ducks, but the rest of the cast, and to watch them go from obscure to overnight sensation and world famous overnight in a secluded enclave in, southeastern, protected from California and the bright lights and some of the. So it was amazing. James was so excited when he signed his first autograph that he came to Mary Margaret, who played his mother. He said, I just signed an autograph. It was so cute. And then when Varsity Blues came out and was in the top, I think it was the top grossing film in America for a while, he took Mary Margaret and me, wanted us to go with him, I guess surrogate parents, to go see it, So that was a real special experience. It's been great to watch those actors take off.
And not a big part of your filmography, but I also realized you were the dad on Neverending Story once.
Neverending Story 2, that was pre-Flash. What?
I don't. I was actually waiting when you came in. I am vaccinated. I'm doing fine. I was actually going to. I was
Great.
Pausing a moment. It's one of those things when we're in the world we're at right now, we're always trying to figure out, what is the comfort level of the other person, so I want to make sure you're okay with it too. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
absolutely.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Before I continue, I want to point out that this is not my panel. This is your panel.
Yes.
So if anybody has
Sorry.
questions, you feel free to put a hand up. I will ask John questions as we go, but I would love to get some from you, and I think you would prefer to get them from the hardcore fans.
I will answer the questions wherever they come from, or I'll dance around the questions I don't want to answer.
All right, well, we got one already.
Yes. Oh my God, that's a hard one. I have to say, in the early seasons, the hurricane episode, which was so well written. I mean, people forget that at the beginning, in first season, we were the critically acclaimed Dawson's Creek. It was a big critical hit. It was a new way of telling. I've been fortunate in my career. It was a new way of telling shows about young people, writing up to a young audience instead of down. A big star said to creator Kevin Williamson, young kids don't talk like that. And without hesitating, he shot back, maybe not, but they'd like to, and dealing internally with all these things. And it had a different look, a different feel. Of course, when anything achieves that level of pop sensation, after a while, it becomes fodder for late night jokes. Now I think it's on Netflix, and a lot of young people are coming up to me and they said, we've just started watching it, and we really like it. I have to say, as shocking as it was for the audience, and that's one thing that made it so effective, my last 2 episodes, where Dawson and his dad are at each other, and, we have those great scenes, and the one with me and Mary Margaret, watching him play with our new baby, and how proud I am, and I'll never paint a portrait or make a movie or write a play, but one thing, I love the whole family scene that moment, and she ends it by saying, I love my boys. kiss me on the cheek. It was great through the surprise death by ice cream, driving along the road, and then when I got to come back, a la 6 Feet Under, and have memory scenes with all of the characters that I interacted with, and it made me feel like the previous 4 years had been about something, So I have to say I loved those 2 episodes, and early on the hurricane episode, because it was just masterfully crafted. I put her up to that. I said, listen, if nobody has a question, raise your hand, because there's nothing worse than standing up here and nobody wants to know anything.
There's a question in the back right there.
Hi. Mark. Mark is not a villain. The trickster. Mark Hamill, who is such a fine person. Doing a superhero in 1990 is very different than doing a superhero today. It's like I was very cautious about going into a superhero suit, because up until that time it had pretty much been spoofed, right? The Spider-Man series where they would hold the rope beside the camera and throw the rope on as the netting, it was about as high-tech as it got. But, they promised me they wouldn't put me in a pair of red tights. It was a high construction suit, $100,000 to build 4 suits in 1990. And it was the most expensive show Warner Brothers had ever done for television up to that point. And state-of-the-art for its time, special effects. I tell Grant now, I say, 30 years from now, when you want to assess the quality of your show, go back and read the reviews that were written today, because 30 years from now, who knows what will be possible? Things become obsolete, they become a little, but I'm very proud of the fact that we were on the cutting edge. Again, Dawson's Creek, new way of telling shows for young people. Flash 1990, a new way of telling creating superhero entertainment for adults, taking these people seriously as people, as human beings, taking the relationship seriously. What does an ordinary guy do who's decided to go into the crime lab because it's safe, and he doesn't want his, the mother doesn't want to think that all of the men in her family might not come home that night because they're street cops. So Barry goes to become a CSI. We were CSI before CSI was cool, by the way. And the fact that suddenly he gets these powers. His dad's always putting him down. He's going to the crime lab, and Mom says, be careful, and Emmett Walsh says, what's he gonna do? Stub his toe on a footprint? Arr! And then suddenly I get these powers. And I loved that his first reaction was not, I'm gonna go be Hollywood superhero. It was, I don't wanna know from this. Here's the deal. He went to Tina McGee at Star Labs. I wanna get rid of it. I'm perfectly fine with my lot in life and who I am. So you have this ordinary guy who suddenly finds himself with these extraordinary abilities that would make his dad so proud of him, and he can't tell him, and after his brother gets killed, of course, then he decides to assume the powers to avenge the death of his brother. So I'm reading this script and I'm going, well, those are classical human interaction. These are storylines that I could certainly wrap my actor's mind around. Going back to favorite villain, Mark helped me a lot, because in those first episodes, I was very stiff in the suit, right? I didn't want to say dialogue in the suit. I didn't want any B-roll or candid pictures. I didn't want to become a mascot. There was one, let me see, self-censoring? No, it's okay. Okay, I think we're cool. There was one picture where I couldn't sit down. Sorry, I'm doing run-on answers. But I couldn't sit down in the suit. That was one of the problems. So they had a leaning board. I would get up on the leaning board and lean back, and they'd take the hose out of the back and plug me into an ice chest and circulate ice water through it to wake me up. And there was one picture in those days. I haven't smoked for 15, 20 years, right? But there was one picture, I had a Diet Coke in this hand and a cigarette and a towel back, and I'm up on like this, and I'm like, for God's sake, don't let that picture get out. But Mark, see, here comes Mark Hamill, right? In working the leotard, you know? No holds barred, no self-consciousness, totally committed 100% to that crazy, wonderful character. And I thought, well, if Mark Hamill can be okay with it, I need to get over my bad self, you know? So it, and we've gone on from there. I consider it a friendship that I value. We go a long time without speaking or seeing each other, but it's like we pick up right where we left off. What was yours? Favorite villain, I think was your question, wasn't it? It's hard to remember. I've gone off on chasing so many rabbits. Pike, the motorcycle. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had an hour-and-a-half pilot that shot for 6 weeks in May and June in Los Angeles on the back lot at Warner Brothers before they came up with the cooling suit. So, man, I'd had that thing on for 20 minutes, and people say, "Are you hot in there?" And I'd hold up my arm, and they go, and water would just, they'd take the gloves off, and you would feel the suction, and then it would be full of water up to the wrist, and they just dump it out. Another really fun fact, I'm sure, talk about, this is under the category of TMI, too much information. But the problem was the foam latex was crumbling, and they would have creases, and these expensive suits, so they couldn't clean them. So they'd hang them in my trailer, spray them with Lysol, and at 5 a.m. the next morning, I'd be getting into a wet, sticky suit. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we all have our, "Oh, my suit is so hard," stories, and nobody wants to hear that because it served its purpose. Oscar winner designed it. It looked like it was ripped from the comic book at the time, had the hyper musculature, which aerodynamically didn't make much sense, but that's what superheroes had to look like in that day. We were post Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, pumping iron, larger than life. So it served its purpose, and I'm proud to have worn it, and that's what I want to stay with. Yeah, there were challenges. There's like a fraternity, sorority of people who have played superheroes, and we all have our stories, But it's turned out to be an amazing, amazing experience that I never anticipated. Anyway, I hope in there somewhere was an answer to your question.
John, you were apologizing a little bit for chasing the answers down a rabbit hole. I think if anybody can get away with a run-on, it's the Flash.
Right. Good point.
Right.
Boom.
Ed, a question over here?
Hi. I would have to say, and this sounds like a pat answer, but I would have to say my father, because, he was fearless in the course of his career as a minister, starting out in Virginia, following the truth as he knew it at the time, and being passionately committed to the truth, and having courage, being courageous to stand up for what you believe in. He and my mom both were the most significant influences in my, plus they were like 19 when I was born, and I had an older sister, so they were still, we'd head out to the mountains to go camping for a weekend. We'd visit all the presidents' homes. We go to the battlefields. We go to, they were young enough to want to do all these things with us, So we were all experiencing together as a family. So I have to say that. Of course, there have been many people, that have, first as a musician at Indiana University in the opera theater department. I was on a voice performance scholarship before I switched to act, who were major influences. Douglas Marland, who I went from playing Kelly Nelson on Guiding Light to the crazy Douglas Cummings opposite Julianne Moore on As the World Turns, who started as a good guy and went completely psycho, and I got my first Emmy. He was certainly a big creative influence. Greg Berlanti certainly has proven to have a major effect on my career, first as a head writer of Dawson's Creek, and now certainly the Arrowverse. So Real close with Jeff Johns. I think he's a great guy. I just did Stargirl. It's going to be the 9th episode of the new season that premiered August 10th. And if you haven't checked that show out, check it out. It's got depth and weight, and as well as having a teenage superhero, at the center of it, co-starring Luke Wilson, Owen Wilson's brother. So it's a good show. So I always encourage, and I tell people, they say, I'm going to wait for your episode. I say, don't wait for me. Hop in now, because it's just a good show. Did I answer your question? Thank you. Anybody, if I'm going on till I just say, okay, I got it. You can stop now.
I'm going to jump over here to the Flash.
Yes, sir. Stand up, please. Thanks. Come here. Turn around. Let's get you on camera. Ladies and gentlemen, come here. All the Flashes. Come on, let's get a picture here.
Can we get another Speedster as well?
Yes, absolutely. Get up here. Speedsters, get up here. Come on. There we go. All right. Oh, there we got it.
There we go. Run, everybody run.
Thank you, guys. You know the thing I love about, not that anybody asked me, you may not even care what I think about it, but the thing I love about Comicons is that it's a place where we get to all come together. We're a pretty divided society these days, right? But we get to come here, check our politics, check our religion, check our egos at the door, and we all get to relate people to people. I'm a sap. What can I say? It's very emotional to me.
It's a good statement, though. It means a lot.
And we get to have these amazing, intimate experiences sometimes. I can't tell you, it's like, when someone would say, I used to watch your show with my father, and now I'm watching the new show, and then she collapsed in my arms and started crying. I mean, when someone trusts you enough to show you who they really are.
I want to get to Flash's question, but I want to touch base on that for a second. How did it feel not being able to have that interaction for a year and a half?
I canceled 8 personal appearances, a Hallmark movie, an episode of The Flash, a workshop play about Henry Fonda and Jimmy Fonda, 12 Angry Men in Greenwich. I just wiped a whole thing off. I gained 30 pounds. Beginning of they closed the gyms, and I kept eating just the way I always did. Suddenly, I'm like, Jeff Johns calls and, hey, we want you to get back into Jay Garrick soon. I'm like, what? And so it was protein powder and lean cuisine for about. I had to get those pounds back off. So, and I did, and now I'm putting them back on. So, what are you going to say? We do the best we can, right, with what we had.
All right, Flash, what's your question?
Flash.
Well, start with one. Let's go.
Really? How fascinating. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Listen, guys, I got to tell you a story, quick story. Well, there are no quick stories after 60, so forgive me. But I was at Cape Girardeau. We were just talking about this, and I just come from the set of Flash, and they were talking about this new show, Legends of Tomorrow. They just shot a small promo reel for Legends of Tomorrow, Legends of Tomorrow, Legends of Tomorrow. I must have heard it 100 times if I heard it one time over the course of shooting that episode. So I go to Cape Girardeau casually, and in an aside, I say, of course, there's this new superhero show, Legends, that's coming to the CW. Well, suddenly, everybody's eyes got this big, and then all I could see was tops of heads. And they all started texting out the name. Suddenly, my good friend, Suzanne Gomez at CW Flash Publicity, called me and said, John, we haven't announced the name of the new show yet. Could you cool it? I was like, oh, my God, because that's one thing they've done right. It's like when they announced the new Flash, a lot of flurry of activity. They announced I was going to be on it, but didn't say who I was going to play. Flurry of activity, kept that secret for a long time. When that died down, they said, Henry Allen. So they were so careful and strategic about their publicity, and I felt like I had just stuck a foot, thrown a big cog right in their machine. I felt so bad, but she forgave me. But that's why I just listen now when somebody asks me a question like that. I'm like, that's
So regardless if you know the answer or not, it's just
regardless.
All right. So second one real quick, and then we'll go to somebody else.
What's another one? I've heard that. I will tell you, there are no plans at this point for me to do that. That would be a kick. Yeah, they've cut all these fan films of Justice Society with Michael Keaton and me, and I think, who else? Yeah, well, anything would be fun, but I'm looking forward to the new Flash. I mean, after 24 years, they were going to do a CW Flash. They said, "How do you feel about that?" I said, "Representing for 24 years as a superhero is a long time, so it's time, So I can't wait. I can't wait. It keeps rolling on, It has new life every time.
I love that they did a Crisis in Infinite Earths miniseries, but I just really want to have a big budget, full on, bring everybody back we can Crisis movie. That would be just so cool.
Wouldn't that be fun?
You'd be there. All right. Question in the back, sir?
The main difference, great question. Did I put you up to that? Tagged. Well done, by the way. No, it was the fact that today we have CGI. So I don't know if people remember when Jay Garrick was fighting, we were all fighting Savitar that season that seemed to go on forever. And we were on a rooftop and we were running around and Jay gets thrown off. Well, you want to know what my participation in that action sequence was? I'll show you. And then my best friend, DD, Digital Double, took over, and I was thrown around like a rag doll. And then a stuntman actually did the fall from the top of the building. And I have to give a shout out to Dane Farwell, my stuntman in 1990, because we didn't have CGI, to get back to your question. So we were doing live action practical. If we wanted to blow up a semi full of cars, which we did, and throw flames 35, 40 feet in the air, we had to actually do it. We blew out more windows shooting in an alley behind Hollywood Boulevard than you could count. I mean, and we shot all night long. By midweek, we were shooting till dawn. We were shooting till 10 a.m. Saturday morning. We'd be back in at 7 a.m. Monday morning. That went on from third week in August through the second week in May with 4 days off for Christmas, and that was it. We were dead. By the time we shot that final scene, when it was with Mark, appropriately enough, Trial of the Trickster, and we were down southeast Los Angeles in some location. The sun was coming up. Everybody was panicked, as always, and way over our budget. And they yelled cut, and I ripped the wings off and threw them in the air, and I swore I would never get into another superhero suit as long as I lived. Never say never.
All right, we have a Flash question.
Yes. Yeah, you get it. That goes back to what I said before, that he helped me a lot. And then I got the benefit of being mind controlled, and I had trickster boots. And there I am, skipping down the street, knocking over parking meters and catching bullets from the police and throwing it back at the police cars. We could never do that today. Parts of the 1990 Flash, when I go back and watch it now, were dark, because of what someone else asked. We were coming in a template where superheroes were spoofed on TV. Carmen Infantino, one of the original comic book artists of The Flash, said, "Everything's so dark. They always got wet streets, and Flash isn't supposed to be that dark." But we felt we had to ground it in some grit so that the larger audience would take it seriously, and they would realize, that we were doing something different. What was your question? Oh, I think it had to have been that. You know, that moment where we're doing all that stuff, knocking over the one I mentioned. You know, it was I'm his sidekick, and I'm jumping up in the air behind him when he's doing things, and just things John Shipp, would never do. You know, and I got to be really silly, and I think it was Mark's presence and his commitment that gave me the permission to do that. Thank you.
You keep mentioning how dark it was at that time period stuff. Was there like a looming shadow of Keaton and Burton's Batman over the production?
I will tell you what happened. They were both, it's not that we were copying Keaton, it's they were
Not copying,
both
but
in development at Warner Brothers at the same time around a new template. You know, The Dark Knight. Howard Chaykin, the great Howard Chaykin, was one of our story editors, you know. And so it emerged, the movie hit first, and we hit right after. And it was a convergence of a decision made by the creatives at Warner Brothers and to reset the tone. Had no idea it would turn out to be what it is today. First time I went to San Diego Comicon. You know San Diego Comicon? 180,000 people take over the town. We went down there and said, there's a little Comic-Con, we should probably go down there and talk to some people. We walked through in 4 hours, I signed a dozen autographs, and we went back to LA. No big deal. 2014, we're there. Jesse Martin and I step out onto a balcony. It's a sea of people, and they let up this great big cheer. Jesse was like, genuinely, he said, we haven't done anything yet, you know? It was like the experience in 1990 was, oh my God, I hope this doesn't ruin my being taken seriously as an actor. Now every serious actor in Hollywood wants to do superhero entertainment. So I've got one thing to say. Aren't you guys proud of yourselves? The rest of the entertainment industry has finally caught up with you. All right.
got a question over here on the side.
It's incredible. I've played the worst imaginable dad on Teen Wolf, smashing glass. I got to tell you, that one scene we're at the table and I'm asking him all these questions and I'm very laid back. And I tell him his punishment, he got a D, he's got to clean up the kitchen. I want it to be spotless. Wham! And I slam my hands on the dishes and I put the dishes up against, they smash against the wall. And I say, I mean spotless. And I'm throwing glass at him. It's hitting the wall behind him. They yelled, God, Daniel Sharman came over and said, you are scaring the shit out of me, man. But, you know, I did a morning show in Australia a couple of years ago, and they had the chyron across the bottom of America's Favorite TV Dad, which, you know, I don't think it was for Teen Wolf. But, you know, I've got to play an amazing assortment of dads. Starting, people said, how do you feel about coming in and being the father on Dawson's Creek? I said, what do you mean how I feel about it? Well, you know, you're used to being the hero. I said, man, I played my first dad in 1989. Never-ending Story 2. Why would I have a problem with that? Yeah? Never-ending Story 2? Right on. And then Flash came right after that. And then I guess my next dad was Mitch Leary, Dawson's Creek. And then, of course, I've Teen Wolf. I came back for a brief stint on One Life to Live in 2010. Played another psycho dad, Eddie Ford, you know, which was great fun. And I'll never forget, they let me like ad lib and stuff. I swear, I think if I said at the end of this line, I want to set the couch on fire, they would have handed me, you know, some butyl, whatever. I needed to do that because I remember this one time I had one of my sons, I had 3 sons. It was my 3 sons on acid, actually, was what the storyline was. No. He was about this big, and I come in, and he's not there, and I start getting all suggestive with his girlfriend, who is there, you know. And he comes in and catches me. And then I go through this, you know, oh, I know what's going on here. I see your girlfriend all bent over the DVR play. And I did some obscene things. So at the end, I was always trying to crack the cameraman up. So at the end, he says, get out. I say, I have no problem. I got no desire to stay here. And I walk out, and I look at him, and I look at her. I say, when you decide it's time to supersize, you know where to call me. And I walk out there. Well, the cameraman fell off his camera. They have that on YouTube. It's on YouTube now, some of those scenes. Amazing. What was your question? Oh, yeah. It's great. I'll tell you, seriously. Some of the most moving moments I've ever had in the doing of it on television were the scenes in the jail with Grant Gustin at the beginning of season 1. They're the most moving. People said, how did you work up that emotion? You can see my emotions are pretty on the surface anyway, but when I saw Grant go to Arrow, and I saw, that was sort of a backdoor pilot where he was explaining to Oliver, and I thought, this kid's great, man. You can't see the acting. You don't see the acting. He believes every word he said. So when I found out I'd be working with him in that way, I thought, people said, are you going to be a part of the new Flash? You need to be Jay Garrick. I went, if they asked me, the part I would want is Henry Allen, because I knew superhero show, action adventure, ride at the amusement park, great fun time. We go to Iron Heights. The music softens. The lights go down. We walk into that booth. We pick up the phones. We're in a contained space, so we can't do any of our business. You know, all we could do is look at each other, make a connection, and tell the truth. And those scenes were so beautifully written that people say, how'd you work up that emotion? I said, well, the problem was not working up the emotion. The problem was not letting the emotion carry us away. Because nobody wants to see actors, and we've all seen it, on stage, having this great private moment with themselves and doing all the crying for you so you don't have to cry, you know. So we had to keep, and really we didn't rehearse. We just learned the lines, went in, picked up the phones. One of my favorite moments, I'll be forever grateful to Grant for this memory. They had the window and they tilt it for flares, not to get the flare in the camera. But when they turned around to do his close-ups, there was a reflection in his side of the glass. And they started, and he stopped take. And he said, I can't see John. And so they had to fix the lighting and change the lighting, because what was important was two human beings. And you know what was so interesting is the way it all fit together. I was the Flash. He knew I was the Flash. I knew he was going into this iconic, enormous role, what some of his hopes and dreams and insecurities might be. We're both from Norfolk, Virginia. He was born the year that I was shooting the pilot of the 1990 show. Our birthdays are 4 days apart. And 42 years or something. I don't know.
Practically twins.
40, 30. Anyway. And so it just, what? I've lost your question again. Dads. So that was one of the most really moving, totally moving. And every time they'd write it, I'd say, well, that's it. There's no other way to write that scene. That's it. That's the last father-son scene. And then they'd put it in the subjunctive when I was in the infirmary and it had been shanked. And he's sitting there and flashes on the newspaper. And I kind of had figured it out, and he's still hiding it. And I love what Henry does in that moment. Talk about parenting. He doesn't bust him, Barry. He doesn't pull his covers. What he says is, well, I know you're not him. But if the Flash were my son, I'd tell him it's a dangerous world out there, so be careful. You know, and he's saving a lot of lives. But most important, I tell him that his dad is proud of him, you know? And, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that when you're acting with an actor who is as honest and truthful as Grant is. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to question back here, and then we'll come over here again.
You know what we were going to do second season, because we thought we were going another season until the last minute? The Rogues Gallery. You know, that was in the works. So I always was stressing, and this is why they told me that they came to me. Because my first fear was, well, you know, I try to play truth of the moment. I don't know if they said, well, that's why we're coming to you, because we want this guy to be a real guy. So I was always stressing, ordinary guy caught in extraordinary circumstances. What reaction does this have on him as a human being? Does he get cocky? You know, does he veer into vigilantism? You know, does he go too far? What kind of insecurities? What kind of split? Which we got to explore in the Pollux Twin Streaks episode, the Blue Flash and the Red Flash. And so that was always what I wanted to see. And I felt that it was my job when when the lights went down and Shirley Walker and Danny Elfman theme came out, and the special effects started happening, which, by the way, all of our reviews said state-of-the-art special effects, and they were for the time, eye-popping special effects. I mean, big papers like the Washington Post and stuff. And I just lost my train of thought. Somebody help me. What was I talking about? Oh, by the time that all started happening, I felt my job was done. My job was to play Barry Allen and to convince you of who this guy was, so that when I went into the suit, you came with me. And then we were looking at the world from the inside out. That was my template for what I felt my job was, making Barry as believable as I possibly could be. And 24, now 30 years later, it's really paying off, because the CW shows, they're all about combining heart and action adventure. So, yeah.
All right, second row.
This guy right here. How you doing, buddy? I loved the very first scene when I snatch him out of the Speed Force. It was very interesting because, of course, Henry was the soft shoulder for Barry to lean his head on, which he did quite often. He said to me at one time, "I hug you more than I do my own dad," So, and Henry's whole thing was and John's whole thing was to mirror back to Grant/Barry everything that I saw in him that I knew would make him a great human being, and as John, a perfect Flash for today. So Henry was all about creating a safe, warm space and reflecting nothing but love back to his son. Right. Well, suddenly I come out as Jay Garrick. Jay doesn't know who this guy is. What are you gonna? What are you gonna do? Change the timeline every time you have a fight with your girlfriend? And suddenly I'm suspicious of him. It's my Speed Force. Who are you? Who is this kid? What are you up to? And we started running lines, and me with that attitude. At one point, Grant just we were out in the yard behind the set. He just put his head down and started laughing. I said, "Man, what are you laughing at?" He said, "This is so weird, playing this energy with you. It's so different." So I love that scene. Forget the fact that they had Dawson's Creek playing on the bar on the TV as sort of a nod to Greg Berlanti, and me. And I walked in like this because I was like, okay, that's just too many overlapping universes. That's just, I said, I don't want to see that. I can't go there. But I loved that scene. I loved when I took Wally's place in the Speed Force, because I felt like suddenly Jay and Barry had their own version of friendship, different from Henry, and Barry, but we got to be connected. That really paid off in episodes 717 and 718, season finale of the last show, where we're all fighting the Godspeeds. Did I answer your question? Thank you.
All right, we still have time for a few more. I'm trying to get people that haven't asked yet. So, Superman.
Oh, God. One of the funniest moments. Well, one moment I remember is when David Cassidy came in to play the Mirror Master. And as I said, we don't have CGI. And the Mirror Master, I'm doing this wacky version of some alternate universe Professor Zoom voice and spiky hair in disguise, tracking the Mirror Master. He figures it out. He throws a mirror down, and there are snakes all over me. Well, the way we did it was, here come two wranglers with two garbage bags full of snakes. And they draped them over my shoulder and around my neck. At one point I had on sunglasses. The snake crawled over, got between me and my glasses, and I saw the tongue. Danny Bilson was directing the episode. He had to leave the set. I'm like, great. Here I am covered in snakes, and you're bailing on me. But that was something I'll never forget. There were so many. I've got to really sit down and think about that. New show between first and second season. First season, everybody's at their A game. We don't really know each other. We're feeling each other out. I go away. They do several episodes. I come back. Well, there's Jesse Martin and Grant learning a new tap step in the corner. But here comes Tom Cavanaugh giving Carlos a ride in his wheelchair and doing wheelies. There's somebody, somebody over here is singing. I'm like, I felt like I had just walked into the asylum. I missed the bonding, but it was so great. And then boom, as soon as it was time to work, it was time to work, you know. So that was, I hope I answered your question.
Right,
I sort of feel like people ask me questions and then I just answer. I should be a politician. People ask me questions and then I just answer whatever question I want to answer.
all right. We got Captain America back here.
I talked to the executive producer, Eric Wallace, when they asked me to come back to do that before I signed on. And I wanted to make sure, since I knew what they were planning, the Flash must die in Crisis. Well, they can't kill the lead of their show, right? So I felt when they brought me on in Elseworlds, I said, are they setting up the solution to their dilemma? So I talked to him and I said, I just want to make sure he's going to be a part of, is not going to come in for one scene and kill a character and disappoint all the people who've been followers of that character and supported me all these years. He said, oh no, we have way too much respect for you and for the character than that. You're going to be vitally involved. You're going to make a heroic supreme sacrifice in order to save, Grant and the Earths. What I didn't, and I loved it, the way it was written, Sterling Gates and Eric, they didn't make it emotional. They didn't make it sentimental. It was like, sorry, kid, this is where I come in, got to steal your power. Boom, goes down. This is my sacrifice to make. And then on the way out, I threw in a wink to keep it light. Keep riding the lightning, son. I know you'll keep making us all proud, And then I went to make the sacrifice. My wife was dead. You find out I had married Tina McGee. What I didn't know was they were going to find that moment from the 1990s show where I say, I have faith in you, Tina. And they cut to a young me and a young man to pay. She says, I have faith in you too, Barrett. And then they cut back to me and the president on the treadmill. Then I know not only what I'm running away from, but what I'm running towards. And it ends on a note of faith. Well, I thought that whole Crisis section of giving my character the closure that I didn't get in 1991 was the best that it could have been. Directing, writing, editing, acting. One of my favorite moments was I got to go up to Black Lightning. I got to sort of welcome Black Lightning, into the Arrowverse, It's one of my favorite moments in the whole new show was, I'll always be grateful. You gave us the time we needed to figure out a solution to this. And I'll always be grateful to you for that. That was I still get goosebumps thinking about that with Cress. And so I couldn't have been more pleased. Usually I watch something I've done, and the first time I see it, I hate it. I hate it. Nothing I intended to do is there. I think I look awful, I sound awful. Why did I make that choice? The longer I wait to watch something I've done, I forget what I intended, and I can sit back and accept, if not enjoy, what actually happened. Well, Crisis, I was like, yes, we hit the notes. And that's the way I felt about episodes 17 and 18 of season 7. And it's the way I feel about when we reestablished the old Justice Society on Stargirl in episode 9 of Stargirl.
I think we have time for one last question.
No.
All right. One last question right there in the back.
Oh, and then we're going to take a question from this young
I
lady.
didn't see that. We have
real quick.
two long questions. So I see you and then you.
Yes. Go through the casting office. I'm a recurring guest star, so I remember we were trying to shoot, they wanted us to pull up a scene and shoot a very important scene in 2 hours that we weren't supposed to shoot till the last week. And Grant says to me, we're getting ready to say, yeah, we're doing that scene tonight. I said, yeah. He said, well, I was hoping you would say no. Me? I'm like, this is your show, man. That's not my place on this show to say no. It was so cute. He said, yeah, but you're John Wesley Shipp. So I'm afraid I can't help you much there, you know.
Right.
Yes. What part? The hard thing about acting, and I've worked with young actors on the other side of the camera, is acting is not what you think it is. It's not about putting on something from the outside. It's about exactly what we're doing right here. You're listening with such an intensity. Look at that reaction. That's it. It's like people say actors lie. I say no, bad actors lie. Good actors tell the truth on screen. Good luck. You're beautiful.
John, thank you so much for
Thank
this.
you. Thank you. We'll do this. Thank you so much, guys.
Guys, thank you again. Flash of Two Worlds. John Wesley Shipp will be at his table shortly.